I matched with Micah on a Thursday, and by Friday night, we were already making plans. That's how it is sometimes. With certain people, the conversation just feels easy. He was charming, a little cocky, but in a way that made me laugh instead of gag. His photos were a mix of laid back and curated. One on a rooftop bar, one with a motorcycle, one shirtless in a mirror that he probably thought looked casual, but was definitely rehearsed. Still, I wasn't mad about it. We texted all through the day, dropping into that slightly flirty space that lives between innuendo and suggestion. He asked if I was more of a Netflix and wine, or tequila and dancing kind of girl. I told him maybe both, depending on who was pouring. He replied with a wink emoji and a playlist link. Bold. But I liked bold, within reason. We decided to grab drinks at a little dive bar in Echo Park. One of those places with sticky tabletops and twinkly lights strung across the patio. I took my time getting ready, hair curled, eyeliner winged just right. I wore jeans and a black crop top that showed just enough to say, "Hey, I'm trying," without screaming, "Pick me." He was already at the bar when I walked in. Taller than I expected, with a smirk that said he was used to women noticing him. But he didn't overdo it. He stood when I approached, pulled me in for a hug, warm, cologne heavy, just long enough to count. We got drinks, grabbed a booth, and talked. He was a decent conversationalist, though he leaned a little too hard into the "I just got out of something serious" narrative. I nodded through it, sipping mezcal and trying to steer the convo back to lighter things. By the second round, his hand was on my knee. I didn't mind. I'm not made of glass. And honestly, I hadn't had a real date in months. It felt good to be touched, to flirt, to feel like someone wanted me. But then he started getting pushy. "I live 10 minutes from here," he said, voice low. "Got a bottle of wine and a killer view." I laughed. "That sounds like the start of a Dateline episode." He grinned. "Only if you ghost me after." I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. I said I'd think about it after one more drink. He ordered shots. I declined. Something about his energy had started to shift. The charm turned into something more calculated. He started making comments about my outfit, how it was asking for trouble. He said it like a joke, but his eyes didn't smile with the rest of his face. I told him I was calling it a night. He pouted, then offered to order me a ride. "I'm good," I said. "Already have my own rideshare app." He didn't argue, which surprised me. He just nodded and walked me out to the curb. We hugged again, less warm this time, and I slid into the car that pulled up 2 minutes later. The driver was quiet. Middle-aged, baseball cap. Not much small talk, which I appreciated. I was tired and tipsy and ready to be home. About halfway through the ride, I noticed we weren't taking the usual route. I opened the app. It still listed my address as the destination, but the pin was moving along a weird back street I didn't recognize. "Hey," I said gently. "Is this the fastest way?" The driver didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Just avoiding traffic." It was 11:15 p.m. There was no traffic. My stomach tightened. I glanced at his rearview mirror. He wasn't looking at me, just driving, both hands on the wheel. Calm. Too calm. I texted Maya. "If I don't text in 10, call me. Something's off." She replied instantly. "Okay. You all right?" Before I could type back, the car made a sharp turn onto a narrow street. Industrial, dimly lit. Empty. My fingers hovered over the emergency button in the app. Then the driver spoke again. "So Micah said you looked even better in person." My blood went cold. "What?" He didn't respond. Just kept driving. I tapped the emergency button. It buzzed and sent an alert. I didn't know what else to do. My voice caught in my throat. "Stop the car," I said louder this time. He looked at me in the mirror. "Relax. I'm just taking you where he told me to." "Stop. The car." He didn't. I unbuckled my seatbelt and reached for the door handle. The car slowed at a red light, and I yanked the door open and bolted. I ran. Fast. No looking back. My shoes slapped against the pavement. I ducked behind a dumpster, breath ragged, and called Maya. She answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" I gave her the cross streets. She was already in her car. The driver didn't follow me. I don't know if he drove off because I triggered the alert or because he didn't want to risk attention. Either way, he was gone by the time Maya pulled up. I climbed into her car shaking. We drove straight to the LAPD station. I filed a report. Gave them the rideshare info, the license plate, the driver's face, everything. They took it seriously. They said the account had been created that same day. The name on the app didn't match the plate. It was a spoof driver account. Micah had arranged it. I blocked him, reported his profile, reported everything. Hinge emailed me 2 days later to say the account was removed. They thanked me for my report. That was it. I haven't been on a date since. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd gone back to his place. If I'd had that last drink. If I'd let him order that ride without checking the plate. I still go out. Still flirt. Still wear the crop top when I feel like it. But I don't take rides from strangers anymore. I don't let men order my rides. And I always share my location. Dating isn't just awkward now. It's wariness. It's quiet calculation. It's asking yourself, if I say no, will I be punished for it? I met Adam through Hinge, which was starting to feel more like a job than a pastime. Swipe fatigue is real, and I was deep in it. But his profile was different. Not in a try-hard, I read Murakami and climb mountains kind of way, just honest. He had soft eyes, a messy smile, and a photo in front of this mural I recognized from Logan Square. We had a few mutual Instagram followers, which gave me a weird sense of comfort. Like, okay, he's real. He exists in the same city as me. He probably eats brunch too. We matched on a Tuesday. By Thursday, we were texting late into the night. He was easy to talk to. Too easy, maybe. He brought up a little indie bookstore I loved, Voltaire's, before I even mentioned it. Said he liked their poetry section. That made me pause. It's not a secret place, but it's not exactly mainstream either. You been before? I asked. Yeah, once or twice. Came across it through a friend, he said. I let it go. We met for drinks at a wine bar near my apartment. When he walked in, he looked exactly like his photos. A little taller than I expected, a little more confident than I was ready for. He gave me a hug like we already knew each other. And that's how it felt, like he already knew me. He asked questions I didn't remember answering. About my job, my favorite bar, my dog's name, all the stuff people usually have to earn over a few dates. He already had it lined up. I must have stalked your profile harder than I realized, he joked. I laughed, because what else do you do? But something about it put me on edge. The date went well. He was attentive, funny, a little flirtatious without pushing it. We kissed in front of the train station, and I went home thinking, okay, maybe this one's actually normal. But things got weird fast. The next day, he sent me a playlist. It included 3 songs I'd posted on my story weeks ago, and one that I'd only played at home through my smart speaker. I hadn't shared it anywhere. Another day, he joked about a tweet I'd deleted. Something dumb about eating chips for dinner. I'd posted it at 2 a.m. and deleted it by morning. He brought it up like it was an inside joke. How'd you see that? I asked. He replied, I've got good timing, I guess. I started feeling watched. Not in a horror movie way, just tracked. Cataloged. So I brought it up. Do we have mutual friends? I asked him over brunch after our 3rd date. He sipped his coffee. A couple, I think. You went to DePaul, right? Yeah. But how do you know that? He hesitated for half a second. You mentioned it, I think. I hadn't. Later that night, I did a little digging. I searched his name on Facebook. We weren't friends, but we had 5 mutuals. I messaged one of them, Liv, a girl I knew from a writing workshop last year. Hey, random question, I typed. Do you know Adam K? She replied 10 minutes later. Yeah, he dated a friend of mine a while back. Why? Just matched with him, trying to figure out how he knows so much about me. There was a long pause. Then, oh, that guy. Be careful. He's intense. He used to do this thing where he'd ask mutual friends about girls he liked before messaging them. Like, collect info. It creeped my friend out. My stomach dropped. I asked, do you think he did that with me? I mean, probably. If you have mutuals, he definitely used it. I didn't reply. I sat on my bed, scrolling back through our messages. The way he'd known about my dog, my yoga studio, the exact coffee order I'd mentioned once in a comment under someone else's post. He hadn't just picked it up from my profile. He'd been looking. And not just casually browsing. He had been collecting. The next day, I confronted him. I didn't want to meet in person, so I texted. Hey, I need to ask something. Did you ask people about me before we matched? He replied almost immediately. What? No. Why would I do that? I talked to someone. She knows you. Said you've done it before. Another pause. Then, okay, I might have asked around. Just wanted to make sure you weren't some psycho or something. Is that a crime? I stared at the screen for a long time. That's not what you did, I wrote back. You didn't check if I was normal. You used people to collect details. You made me think we had things in common that you engineered. Don't be dramatic, he replied. I blocked him. Later that week, I got a DM from a fake-looking account. No posts, no followers. Just a message. Hope you enjoyed your little investigation. You're not that interesting. Then it blocked me before I could reply. I told Maya everything. She wasn't even surprised. He's not the first guy to do that, she said. Some people think information equals intimacy. She was right, but it still messed with me. It's not that he lied exactly. It's that he built a version of himself that fit perfectly into the version of me he had assembled from scraps. And I fell for it, because who doesn't want to feel understood? Now I keep my stories close and my circle tighter. I scrub my social media when I date someone new. I ask more questions. I trust slower. I don't think Adam was dangerous in the way people usually mean. But he was willing to cross a line quietly. He didn't want to get to know me. He wanted a version of me that he could control. And that's more dangerous than any bad pickup line. I'd always been careful on dating apps. Not paranoid, just thoughtful. I work as a freelance UX designer, so I spend most days in my apartment, toggling between Figma files and podcasts about stories I'll never live. After a while, the silence starts to hum. That quiet ache of wanting a real conversation, a shared glance, someone to ask if you've eaten. It was Maya, my best friend and roommate, who finally convinced me to try again. Just 1 week, she said, tossing a pillow at me while we watched reruns of some show neither of us really liked. You're a grown woman. You can survive 7 days on Hinge. So I downloaded it, made a profile that didn't try too hard, and braced myself for the usual: gym bros, travel addicts, and bios riddled with red flags. Then I matched with Eli. We met for drinks at a bar downtown. He looked just like his photos, clean cut, a little overdressed for the venue, but not in a bad way. The conversation flowed. He was funny, attentive, asked questions without making it feel like an interview. I liked that he didn't check his phone once. Toward the end of the night, he leaned in a little too close and asked if I wanted to come over for a nightcap. I smiled. Rain check. He gave me this look, half smile, half smirk. You're different. Most people don't say no to me. That stuck with me. Not in a huge way, just a gentle nudge in the back of my mind. I said goodnight, got in my Uber, and texted Maya. Good convo. Not sure I'll see him again. Something felt off. The next morning, I unmatched him. No drama. Just a quiet exit. A week later, I was back on the apps, not expecting much. Swipe, swipe, pause. A new profile popped up, Daniel R. A few well-composed photos. One in a bookstore, another with a dog, and wait, a third in a kayak. I stared. The dog had the same white spot over its left eye. The kayak photo had a different shirt, but the same angle, same smirk. I tilted the screen and blinked. No way. Everything okay? Maya asked from the doorway, holding a mug of tea. I handed her my phone. Tell me I'm not losing it. She squinted. Is that Eli? I think so. New name, new pictures. But same dog. Same kayak. Same bar in the background. She frowned. That's weird. Like calculated weird. I'm matching with him, I said. Maya raised an eyebrow. Are you serious? I just want to see what he says. The match popped up immediately. I messaged, hey, cute dog. He replied within minutes. Thanks. He's a rescue. Kind of a goofball. You into dogs? Over the next few days, we talked. Again, he mirrored the same tone, same jokes, even mentioned the same authors when I asked what he was reading. He said his favorite whiskey was Highland Park 12. That was the exact brand Eli had bragged about on our date. I played along, casually re-asking things he'd already told me the first time. He didn't seem to notice. Then he suggested we meet up. There's this bar on 6th near the bookstore. Really chill vibe. You'd like it. That was the exact bar we'd gone to before. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I showed Maya the messages. He thinks you forgot, she said. Or he thinks you'll just ignore it. I nodded. I want to call him out, but I want to do it in person. So I agreed to the date. Same bar. Same time. Same outfit I wore the first time. Maya came with me, posted up at the opposite end of the bar with her laptop, pretending to work. She's the kind of friend who doesn't ask why you need her there. She just shows up. He was already seated when I arrived, sipping a beer. He stood when he saw me. Nina, right? I tilted my head. Have we met before? He grinned. Nope. First time. I sat down. Weird. You look familiar. Maybe I just have one of those faces. I smiled, but inside something hardened. Or maybe you're Eli. We matched last month. Went on a date. Same bar. Same dog. Same kayak. His smile twitched. What? You made a new profile. Changed your name. But not your dog. Not the bar. Not your whiskey. He blinked, then leaned back in his chair. Okay. Sure. You caught me. But we had a good time. I thought maybe you'd give me another shot. You lied, I said. You didn't think I'd give you another shot, so you tried to trick me into one. I didn't lie, he said. I just made a new profile. You unmatched me. I figured you weren't sure. You figured wrong. He shrugged. This is exactly why dating sucks. You unmatch someone without a reason. So yeah, I changed the name. Big deal. You could have just messaged and said, hey, I think we got off on the wrong foot. You didn't. You went out of your way to deceive me. That's not charming. That's manipulative. He didn't say anything. Just stared at me, mouth tight, eyes flat. I stood up. We're done here. Outside, the air felt sharp and cleansing. I walked straight to Maya, who'd seen everything. You good? She asked. Yeah, I said. I'm reporting him. I emailed the app support team that night with screenshots and a full description. His account was gone by the next morning. I didn't open the app again after that. I didn't delete it either. Just let it sit in the background, like an unread book I wasn't ready to throw out. That weekend, I started a note on my phone. If I ever swipe again. A list of things I'd watch for. Voices I'd trust. Gut feelings I wouldn't ignore. I don't think I regret meeting Eli. I regret giving him attention twice. But I'm proud I didn't give him a third chance. Because the moment someone pretends to be someone else to win you over, that's not romance. That's rehearsal. And I'm not interested in starring in someone's performance. I didn't notice it at first. You never do with things like this. It starts small, barely there, just a flicker of coincidence that you brush off. Then another, and another, until suddenly, you're standing in the middle of your own life wondering how much of it someone else has been watching. Her name was Olivia, and she was the kind of woman who made you feel like you were already behind. Like she'd already done the therapy, read the books, figured herself out. And you were just trying to keep up. I met her at an outdoor climbing gym in Fremont. She asked if I needed a belay partner, which I did. And after that day, I found myself adjusting my schedule to align with hers. She was magnetic in that subtle, low-frequency way. No drama. No chaos. Just a calm confidence that made you want to impress her. She was a teacher, middle school STEM. Smart, sarcastic, always in yoga pants and oversized hoodies, like she didn't know she was beautiful. Or maybe she knew and just didn't care. We started dating casually. Then more seriously. Then she was sleeping over 3 nights a week. Then she had a drawer in my dresser. Then she stopped leaving. I liked it. Mostly. She was always thoughtful, dropping off homemade granola bars at my office, texting me sweet little check-ins, remembering every detail I ever told her. I chalked it up to her being a good listener. I didn't see it as a red flag. Not yet. One night, maybe 4 months into our relationship, she surprised me with a new smartwatch. One of those sleek, matte black ones that sync with your phone. I'd mentioned wanting to get back into running, and she said this would motivate me. It tracks everything, she said, excited. Heart rate, sleep, GPS, even hydration levels if you wear it long enough. GPS? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, for your runs, she said, so you can see your route and pace. I didn't think twice about it. I wore it, synced it, forgot about it. That's when the coincidences started. She began showing up at places I hadn't told her I was going. I'd grab a beer with coworkers and she'd text, "How's Fremont brewing tonight?" Or I'd take a spontaneous late-night walk and she'd say, "Bit chilly out for 11 p.m., huh?" I joked that she was psychic. She laughed it off. Lucky guesses. But they weren't. It reached a point where she showed up at my gym on a Saturday morning, saying, "Thought I'd surprise you with smoothies." I hadn't posted anything. Hadn't told her where I was going. My stomach twisted a little, but I smiled and said thanks. Later that night, I asked her, "How'd you know I was there?" She didn't miss a beat. "I figured you'd go. You usually do on Saturdays." The next day, I went for a run without telling anyone. No phone, just headphones. When I got home, she was sitting on my porch with Gatorade. "You ran a little slower than usual," she said, grinning. That's when it clicked. The watch. She was tracking me. I didn't want to believe it at first. I told myself maybe she was looking at my stats afterward. Maybe it was a fluke. Maybe I was being paranoid. But something in her tone that day, so casual, so confident, made me start digging. I opened the health app on my phone. There was my entire route, speed, heart rate, split times. Synced automatically. I checked the sharing settings. I hadn't turned on location sharing with her. But somehow it was enabled. And she was on the list. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling my throat tighten. When I confronted her that night, I kept it calm. "Hey," I said, trying to sound curious. "Did you sync my watch to your phone?" She looked up from her laptop. "What? My watch? You've been tracking my runs?" She blinked. "I mean, not tracking. I just have access to the data. You synced it when I set it up, remember?" "No," I said. "I didn't." She shrugged. "I thought it would be helpful. You mentioned wanting accountability. I didn't mean surveillance." Her expression hardened. "It's not surveillance, it's support." "Jesus, why are you making it sound creepy?" "Because it is," I said. "You've been showing up to places I didn't tell you about. That's not support, Liv. That's control." She stood up, pacing. "Wow. Okay. So I buy you something to help you stay healthy, and now I'm the bad guy. I didn't ask to be tracked. You didn't say you minded. I didn't know." She scoffed. "God, this is insane. You know what? I don't even care about your stupid data. Keep your precious privacy." She stormed out. I sat there in silence, the watch still buzzing on my wrist, mocking me. That night, I removed her from every shared app, changed my health data settings, and turned off location access. It felt like reclaiming something I hadn't even realized I'd lost. But it wasn't over. She texted me the next day like nothing had happened. "Morning, babe. Hope you slept okay. Want to grab lunch later?" I didn't respond. She called. I ignored it. Then she started showing up again. At my gym. At my favorite sandwich spot. Even at the trailhead where I hiked on weekends. She always acted surprised. "Oh hey, didn't know you'd be here too." The same woman who used to claim she respected boundaries now seemed incapable of recognizing them. I told her clearly and directly, "I need space. Please stop showing up." She nodded, apologized, said she got it. Then 2 days later, she left a smoothie at my door. I knew it was her. The same brand, same note. "Thought you could use a boost." I felt like I was being hunted by kindness. Eventually, I had to block her. Phone, Instagram, email. I even changed my gym schedule. I stopped going to my favorite bar. I deleted the fitness app entirely. The smartwatch went into a drawer, face down, screen dark. I thought that would be the end of it. Then she messaged my sister. They'd met once. At a birthday dinner. Barely spoke. But now Olivia was DMing her, asking if I was okay, if I was spiraling. If maybe I'd had a breakdown. My sister called me, concerned. "What's going on with you too?" I told her everything. "Jesus," she said. "She's not just clingy. She's obsessed." That was the word I'd been avoiding. Obsessed. It didn't feel like obsession at first. It felt like attention. Like care. Like someone actually giving a shit. But it had turned into something else. Something that made me feel like I was constantly being watched, even when I wasn't. I filed a police report. Not because I thought it would do much, but because I wanted it documented. I wanted some kind of paper trail. It was the ugliest breakup I've ever had, and we never even officially broke up. She just faded after that. No more texts. No more drop-ins. I think the report scared her. Or maybe she finally realized I wasn't playing along anymore. It's been almost a year. I haven't dated since. Not really. I've hooked up a few times, gone on a couple awkward coffee dates. But nothing serious. Because now, I flinch when someone wants to check in. I hesitate when someone asks to share locations just for safety. I second-guess every gift, every compliment, every small act of thoughtfulness. What Olivia did wasn't violent. It wasn't overt. It didn't leave bruises. But it chipped away at my autonomy so slowly that I didn't notice until I was half a stranger in my own routine. People talk about boundaries like they're obvious. But they aren't. Especially when someone blurs them with affection. She never yelled. Never threatened. Never raised a hand. She just watched. I thought I was done with Ben. We broke up 8 months ago. It was messy, sure, but not police messy. No slashed tires. No public screaming. Just a slow unraveling that started with too many little lies and ended with me packing my things while he sat on the couch, scrolling through Reddit and pretending I wasn't leaving. He didn't beg. He didn't cry. He just watched me go with this hollow look in his eyes, like he was filing the moment away for later. I blocked him on everything: Instagram, phone, Venmo, Spotify. I even changed my Netflix password because I was tired of seeing "continue watching" Mindhunter pop up on my feed. I thought that was it. I thought he'd fade into the background like most exes do. I was wrong. It started with a new match. His name was Cameron. His profile was one of those carefully casual setups: 2 outdoor selfies, 1 moody black and white shot, and a group pic at a rooftop bar. He listed himself as a photographer and had a short, confident bio: looking for something real. Let's skip the small talk. I didn't recognize him. Not at first. But he was good. Whoever Cameron really was, he knew how to say all the right things. He messaged me first with a comment about the book I'd mentioned in my profile, then a follow-up about a music venue I'd posted in my photos. We talked for 3 days straight. He was funny, a little flirty, self-deprecating in the way that makes you feel like you're winning something by liking him. Looking back, I realize how coordinated it all was. He didn't just know what to say, he knew when to say it. He was shaping the conversation to hit my soft spots. And I was falling for it. We planned to meet for dinner on a Thursday night. He suggested a restaurant in the Pearl District, one I hadn't been to but had bookmarked a while ago. I didn't think anything of it. I wore jeans, boots, and a fitted sweater, pulled my hair back, and told my friend Rachel where I was going. "Send me a pic when you get there," she said. "And do the fake phone call thing if it's weird." I laughed. "I'll be fine." I should have listened to that little flicker of unease. The one I always ignore until it's too late. When I walked into the restaurant, I saw him right away. He was already seated. Candlelight flickered across his face, and for a moment, I felt this weird sense of déjà vu. Then he stood up, and my stomach dropped. It was Ben. He was thinner than I remembered, hair a little longer, but it was him. No question. I froze. He smiled like nothing was wrong, like this was normal. "Hey," he said, stepping forward to hug me. I backed away. "What the fuck is this?" "Please," he said, hands up. "Just sit. I just wanted to talk." I looked around. No one else seemed to notice anything. To them, we were just another couple out for dinner. "I'm leaving," I said. "Please, just 5 minutes. I swear, I'm not here to fight. I just want to talk. You don't even have to stay for dinner." I hesitated. Every cell in my body was telling me to run. But I also knew him. I knew if I left without hearing him out, he might try something worse. So I sat. Not because I trusted him, but because I needed to control the situation. He sat down too, folding his hands neatly on the table like we were at a job interview. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know this is insane. I didn't know how else to see you. You catfished me. I didn't mean to hurt you." I stared at him. "What did you mean to do, Ben?" He looked down at his water glass. "I've been going to therapy. I've been working on myself. I know I messed up, but I still care about you. I thought if you saw that I'd changed, maybe. You thought pretending to be someone else would win me back." He didn't respond. "That's not therapy, Ben. That's stalking." He looked up, his face twitching in frustration. "I just wanted one more conversation. You never gave me that. You just walked away. Because you lied. You cheated. You gaslit me. You made me feel like I was crazy for asking basic questions. I owed you nothing." His jaw clenched. "You always do this." I stood up. "We're done." He grabbed my wrist. Not hard. Just enough to stop me. "Let go," I said. He did. Slowly. The waitress came over then, smiling. "Can I start you both with something to drink?" I looked at her, eyes wide. "Actually, I don't feel safe. Can you help me get out of here?" Her smile dropped instantly. "Of course. Come with me." She didn't ask questions, just nodded to another server and led me toward the kitchen. Ben stood up behind me. "Wait." The waitress turned. "Sir, please stay seated." I didn't look back. We cut through the kitchen, hot, loud, full of clattering plates and confused cooks, and exited through a service door that led to the alley. She handed me her phone. "Do you need to call someone? Want me to call the police?" My hands were shaking. "I think I need a ride. Can you stay with me until it gets here?" "Absolutely." We waited in silence. My Uber pulled up 5 minutes later. I slid into the back seat and gave the driver a tight nod. The waitress watched until we drove away. I didn't cry until I got home. Then I locked all the doors, crawled into bed fully dressed, and shook for what felt like hours. He'd known exactly what he was doing. He'd used a fake profile, a fake name, even a fake job. He'd mirrored all the things I was attracted to. He'd picked a public place so I wouldn't run. He'd planned it. He wanted to scare me, to control me. Maybe even worse. I changed my number the next day, deleted the dating apps, reported the fake profile, told Rachel everything. I swear to God, she said, if I ever see him again. I nodded. Same. 3 weeks later, I found out he'd tried to contact 2 of my friends. Said he was worried about me, that I was acting unstable. That's when I filed the restraining order. He didn't show up to the hearing, but the judge granted it anyway. I keep a copy of it in my bag, not because I think it'll stop him if he really wants to do something, but because I want proof. I want a paper trail. I want to be believed if anything ever happens again. Dating isn't fun anymore. It's strategy. It's background checks and sharing your location and memorizing exits. It's wondering if the guy who seems perfect is just wearing someone else's face. I've started trusting my instincts more. That flicker of unease? I listen to it now. I don't give people the benefit of the doubt when they haven't earned it. I don't stay to be polite. And I always look for the back exit. We moved in together too fast. I knew it. My friends knew it. Hell, even my mom hinted at it in that careful way she does when she's trying not to step on my autonomy. But I'd been lonely. And when Eric came along, it felt like someone had finally matched my pace. He was decisive, confident, the kind of guy who made you feel like the world was slightly more manageable when he was around. We met at a friend's rooftop party in early spring. He was funny, attentive, and had that easy, disarming sarcasm that made me forget how guarded I usually am. 6 weeks after we met, we were talking about moving in together. By month 3, he was already staying at my place most nights. By month 5, he had a key and half my closet. The lease was mine. My name, my credit, my rent payments. But he brought in furniture, cooked dinner, even got to know the neighbors better than I did. It felt like we were building something real. Until it didn't. It started with little things. He'd get weirdly controlling about the thermostat, about how I loaded the dishwasher, about when and how I vacuumed. At first, I laughed it off. You're such a Virgo. I'd tease, even though he never actually told me his birthday. Then there were the nights he wouldn't come home. No text. No call. Just silence until morning, when he'd walk in with coffee like nothing had happened. I asked him once, "Where were you last night?" He blinked. Out. Out where? Why do you care? That was the first time I felt the shift. The first time his voice carried something sharp underneath. I started noticing other things. His stories didn't line up. He said he was a freelance web developer, but I never once saw him work. He said he didn't use social media, but I found a burner Instagram account with a fake name and photos of him with people I didn't know. I confronted him. He laughed. "You're being dramatic." I told him I wanted him to move out. That's when everything changed. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just said, "I don't think I'm going anywhere." I blinked. "What?" "I live here now," he said. "You invited me in. I've been here for months. This is my home too." I pointed at the lease. "You're not on it." He smiled. "Doesn't matter. Texas law gives tenant rights after 30 days. You'd have to evict me." I thought he was bluffing. He wasn't. The next morning, I called my property manager. She confirmed it. If someone has been living in your home for 30 days, even without a lease, they can claim tenant rights. I had to go through a formal process to remove him. I felt like I was going insane. He started leaving his stuff everywhere, intentionally messy. He refused to leave during the day, even when I had to work from home. He took long showers during my Zoom calls. One afternoon, he walked into the background shirtless while I was on a client call and winked at the camera. I filed the first notice to vacate. He laughed when I handed it to him. "You think a piece of paper is going to get rid of me?" he said. I started sleeping at Mariah's. I couldn't be in my own apartment without feeling like I was under siege. He texted me constantly. "Come home. We can work this out. You're being paranoid." When I didn't respond, he started posting vague quotes on his burner account. Things like, "You never really know someone until you live with them," and "Some people turn out to be strangers in disguise." One night, I came back to grab a few things. He wasn't supposed to be home. I told him 2 days in advance I'd be stopping by. But when I walked in, he was sitting on the couch, lights off, just waiting. "Miss me?" he said. I didn't even answer. I walked straight to the bedroom, grabbed what I could, and left. The next day, I filed an official eviction notice through the county. That's when the mask really came off. He showed up to the hearing in a blazer and said I had invited him to live there under a verbal agreement. He claimed he'd paid for groceries and utilities and should be entitled to reimbursement or adequate time to transition out. He brought fake receipts. Literally printed out fake Venmo screenshots claiming he'd paid me rent. I was lucky. I had proof, bank statements, lease agreements, texts showing he'd never paid a cent. The judge ruled in my favor. He had 10 days to vacate. On day 9, I came home and found my apartment trashed. Not destroyed, just violated. Drawers left open. My clothes dumped on the floor. The fridge door wide open. My toothbrush snapped in half and left on the counter. No signs of forced entry, but I knew it was him. He still had the key. I changed the locks that night. He left one final note in my mailbox. You'll always wonder who I really was. That's the part one like most. I didn't sleep for a week. I hired a locksmith to install a deadbolt with a keypad. I bought pepper spray. I told my boss. My friends. I documented everything. Eventually it stopped. The texts. The posts. The notes. It's been almost a year now. I still live in the same apartment. I thought about moving, but I didn't want to let him chase me out of my own space. I've reclaimed it, piece by piece. The thing that gets me isn't just how he manipulated me into letting him in. It's how easy it was for him to stay. All he had to do was wait. Wait until I was comfortable enough to give him a drawer, a key, a toothbrush. Wait until the law said he had rights over my space, just by occupying it. He never cared about me. He cared about control. I started using the check-in app after a girl I knew from college went missing for 3 days. She was fine in the end, just off the grid at a wellness retreat, but that didn't stop the spiral it sent me into. So I downloaded one of those safety apps. The kind where you pick emergency contacts, drop pins before dates or solo runs, and send quick alerts if something feels off. I liked the simplicity of it. Just a few taps and someone knew where I was. I only ever shared my check-ins with 2 people, my best friend Mariah and my boyfriend at the time, Wes. Wes and I met at a trivia night. He was the kind of guy you wouldn't look at twice if he wasn't funny. But he was funny. Smart, too, in a way that didn't feel performative. He wasn't trying to impress me, which was probably what impressed me most. We started dating 2 weeks after we met. He asked if he could walk me home after our second date, and I remember thinking, he's actually safe. Funny how wrong you can be about someone. We dated for 8 months. It was good mostly. He was thoughtful, occasionally intense, and weirdly intuitive. He had this knack for knowing when I was having a hard day before I even said anything. At first, I thought it was romantic, like he was tuned into my frequency. Later, I'd wonder if he was just watching. I told him about the check-in app around month 2. We were getting drinks, and I just tapped the "I'm here" button to let Mariah know I'd arrived. He saw the screen and leaned in. "What's that?" "It's just a safety thing," I said. "Let someone know where I am when I go out." "Smart," he said. "You trust me enough to share with me?" It felt like flirting, like a little intimacy test. So I added him. He didn't mention it again. After that, we got close fast. He started sleeping over 3 or 4 nights a week. Knew my coffee order. Had a toothbrush at my place. We had a rhythm that felt easy, but also a little curated. Like he was always one step ahead of me. He'd ask how my therapy session went when I hadn't told him I had one. He'd predict what I'd order at brunch before I even opened the menu. He once showed up at the exact trail I was running on with Gatorade and said, "Thought you'd be here." At the time, I chalked it up to compatibility. But now I know better. The breakup was mine. I initiated it. Not because he was awful, he wasn't. He was just too present. Too inside my space. He'd get cold when I wanted time alone. He'd sulk if I didn't text back within an hour. He once showed up at my apartment after I said I needed a night to myself, acting like he forgot I'd said that. I should have ended it then. But I didn't want to be dramatic, or ungrateful, or rude. Eventually, I just told him, gently, that I didn't feel like we were working anymore. He took it well. Suspiciously well. He nodded, hugged me, and said, "I get it. Thanks for being honest. I hope we can still talk sometimes." I said, maybe. With some space. That was 2 months ago. I didn't hear from him again. No angry texts. No guilt tripping. No late night, "I miss you" voice notes. Just silence. I thought, weirdly, that maybe he was one of the rare ones who actually meant it when he said he respected boundaries. Then things started happening. It started with the bar. I was out with Mariah on a Tuesday night. We sat at the back, near the window, catching up over overpriced cocktails, when she got quiet mid-sentence and glanced toward the door. "Is that Wes?" I turned, and there he was, standing near the bar, pretending to scroll on his phone. He didn't look at me, didn't approach, just stood there for maybe 10 minutes, then left. I laughed it off. Coincidence. Then it happened again. At the farmer's market. At the bookstore 2 blocks from my apartment. At my gym of all places. Always the same pattern. He'd show up, not say anything, and leave. I started feeling like I was being haunted. But I couldn't prove anything. He wasn't doing anything illegal. Just loitering. Existing. Near me. Then came the check-in. I'd forgotten he still had access to the app. It had faded into the background of my phone, like an old alarm you forget to disable. One night, I went to a friend's show at a dive bar across town. I checked in without thinking, like I always did. 10 minutes later, Wes walked in. I froze. He saw me. Smiled like it was fate. Like this was just some adorable coincidence. "Hey," he said, walking up. "Didn't know you liked this band." I stared at him. "Wes, what are you doing here?" He shrugged. "Just out. Saw the posters. Thought I'd check it out." I didn't believe him. I left halfway through the set. At home, I opened the app and checked the sharing settings. He was still on the list. I removed him. Then I checked the history. He'd been checking my location history for months. Even after we broke up. Every check-in I'd made, bars, hikes, coffee shops, he'd seen it. Logged it. I stared at the screen for a long time, heart pounding. I texted Mariah. "He's been watching me." She called immediately. "What the hell?" I told her everything. She made me promise to go to the police. I didn't. Because what would I say? My ex-boyfriend is showing up in public places. He hasn't said anything threatening, but I think he's following me. They'd ask if I had proof. I didn't. Until the parking garage. It was a Friday night. I was leaving a friend's apartment downtown, walking to my car in one of those dim, echoey parking structures that always feel one flickering light away from a horror film. I heard footsteps. Soft. Measured. Following mine. I turned. It was Wes. He stepped into view like he'd been waiting for me to notice. "Wes," I said. "What the actual fuck are you doing?" He smiled. "I wanted to talk." "In a parking garage?" "You blocked me. Didn't leave me another option." I took a step back. "This isn't okay." "I just want closure," he said. "You owe me that." "I don't owe you anything," I said. "You've been following me." He shrugged. "You let me." I blinked, confused. "The app," he said. "You let me see where you were. You invited me in." "I didn't hack anything." I felt cold all over. "I removed you," I said. "Too late," he replied. He took a step toward me. I turned and bolted. I barely remembered unlocking the car. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys once, and when I finally got inside, I locked the doors and sped out of the garage without looking back. I didn't go home that night. I stayed at Mariah's. The next morning, I went to the police. They listened. They were polite. But they said the same thing I already knew. He hasn't made a direct threat. You could file a restraining order, but unless he violates something, we can't do much. So I filed. I sent screenshots of the app history. I printed out every check-in, every time he'd appeared after I'd logged my location. I wrote a statement. It was approved. He never challenged it. I deleted the check-in app the same day. I don't know if he's still watching me. I changed my number, locked down my Instagram, made my Venmo private. I even moved apartments a few months later, smaller place, different part of the city, no forwarding address. I still feel him sometimes. Not literally. Just that hum of uncertainty that someone might still be looking. I don't use safety apps anymore. I rely on texts, phone calls, real friends. At first, I thought he just got lucky. You know how sometimes you match with someone, and it's like they've read your mind? Same music, same taste in movies, same weird guilty pleasure foods? That was Caleb. He said something in his first message about the band in my profile, an obscure indie group I'd followed since college, and I immediately grinned. Most guys open with "Hey beautiful," or "What's up?" He opened with a lyric I hadn't heard anyone quote in years. It felt like fate. We started chatting late at night. He had this easy confidence, like he wasn't trying to sell himself. Just existing. I liked that. I'd just gotten out of something complicated and wasn't looking for anything serious, but Caleb made it hard to stay detached. He was attentive but not clingy. Knew when to leave space but also when to lean in. Our conversations got flirtier quickly, but not in a gross way, just enough double entendre to make me bite my lip while reading. He had a way of making compliments feel like secrets. "You're trouble, aren't you?" he messaged one night after I sent a blurry photo of my legs stretched out in bed, with only a book in frame. "That's a dangerously good angle." I replied, "Maybe." "You want to find out?" he said. "Only if you promise to ruin my life a little." We met for drinks a few days later. He looked exactly like his photos, tall, slightly messy hair, worn denim jacket, and eyes that lingered just long enough to feel deliberate. He hugged me like we'd done it a dozen times before. I remember wondering, briefly, if we'd met before. The date was good. Really good. We sat at the bar for hours, knees brushing, ordering more drinks than we probably should have. He made me laugh until I snorted. When I excused myself to the restroom, he said, "Don't be gone too long. I'm already imagining what you look like without that sweater." I rolled my eyes and smiled, cheeks warm. When I came back, he'd paid the tab. "My treat," he said. "You can get the next one." We walked the long way to my car. At one point, he reached for my hand without asking. It wasn't forced. It felt like he already knew I'd let him. Before I got in my car, he kissed me. Not rushed. Not too soft either. Just enough pressure to remind me what it felt like to want someone again. I texted Mariah the next morning. "May have just met someone who actually gets it." She replied, "You saying that means I need to see this man's face immediately." I sent her his profile. She gave her standard hot but not too hot blessing. We saw each other again that weekend. Then again the next week. Everything felt aligned. But that's when I started noticing the familiarity. Too many things were coincidences. He mentioned a bakery I used to post about in my stories years ago. Knew my favorite cocktail without asking. Once, I caught him humming a song I'd tweeted about obsessively in 2018. I said, "Wait, how do you know that?" He shrugged. "Lucky guess." But it didn't feel lucky. It felt rehearsed. I started digging. I went back to my Instagram, searched through my archive. That bakery? I hadn't posted about it in years. That song? Buried in a playlist I'd shared once on my old Tumblr. The cocktail? It wasn't even on the menu at the place we went. He had to ask the bartender to make it. I checked his name against people I went to college with. Nothing. Then I searched his full name on Facebook. There he was. Same face. Same smirk. Different city. Different name on his dating profile. Caleb wasn't his real name. And then I saw it. We'd gone to high school together. He was a year below me. Quiet. Forgettable. I wouldn't have recognized him now, not with the facial hair and the confidence. But it was him. I stared at the profile photo for a long time, heart thudding. I messaged him. "We went to high school together. Why didn't you tell me?" He replied 8 minutes later. "Wasn't sure you'd remember me." I figured it didn't matter. "It matters." He said, "I've had a crush on you since junior year." I didn't know how to say that without sounding like a stalker. I didn't know what to do with that. Part of me felt violated. Another part of me remembered the way he kissed me, hands on my waist, like he knew exactly where to touch. I remembered how I'd wanted to be wanted again. But this wasn't the same as a teenage crush. This was a man who'd built an entire persona around things I liked. Things I'd posted, shared, forgotten. He hadn't just waited for me. He'd studied me. I stopped replying. He messaged again the next day. "I'm sorry if I crossed a line. I just wanted to be close to you. You don't know what it's like, watching someone become your dream girl, and knowing they'd never even look at you." I didn't answer. He left a voicemail that night. His voice was quiet, shaky. I didn't mean to lie. I just wanted to be the version of me you might actually choose. I blocked his number. He found me on Instagram the next week. A new account. No posts. Just a message. "I was never trying to hurt you." Then another. "You looked really good in that green sweater last Friday." I wasn't trying to scare you. I just think about you a lot. I reported the account. Blocked it. I told Mariah everything. She gasped. "That's not romance. That's a long-form trap." She wasn't wrong. I changed my number. Locked down every account. Turned off story replies. Unlinked old blogs. Deleted playlists. The next time someone tells me they just happened to like the same obscure bands I do, I'll hesitate. I didn't even like him that much. That's what made it worse. His name was Drew. He had a crooked smile, thick forearms, and the kind of confidence that comes from being liked too easily. We matched on a Thursday, flirted through the weekend, and met for drinks the following Tuesday. I wasn't expecting much. Just a warm body, a decent laugh, maybe a kiss if the vibe was right. Instead, we ended up in a booth at a divey cocktail lounge, knees touching, talking about everything from childhood trauma to favorite ramen spots. He said things like, "I like when women don't filter themselves, and you're easy to talk to, not like most people." I fell for it a little. Not fully. Just enough to text him afterward. "Hey, I had fun tonight. You've got that rare combo of smart and not full of shit." To which he replied, "Same. You're refreshing. Let's do it again soon." The next day, nothing. No text. No meme. No cute thinking about you check-in. I waited a day, then sent a chill message. "No pressure, but I'm free Thursday if you want to grab food." Nothing. I got ghosted. It happens. I've done it. It sucks, but it's part of the game. What I didn't expect was what came next. 2 weeks later, Mariah sent me a link. No context. Just, "Hey, I think this is about you." It was a Reddit thread. /online dating fails. I clicked. My heart sank. There it was, screenshots of our conversation. My message about him being smart and not full of shit. My follow-up text about Thursday dinner. The captions were brutal. "When she thinks your trauma bond was flirting." She said refreshing like I'm a LaCroix. They weren't just mocking me. They were dissecting me like I was some kind of specimen. One comment said, "This chick sounds like she'd bring up her therapist during sex." Another called me overconfident mid. The username wasn't Drew's real name, but the profile picture was cropped from his dating app. Same shirt, same background. He just edited his name out of the texts and left mine out too, but the messages were unmistakably mine. Word for word. Emoji for emoji. I felt sick. I told Mariah, "This can't be real." "Who does this?" She said, "A lot of them. You just caught one." I didn't know what to do. I wasn't doxxed. My name wasn't there. But it was still me. My words. My vulnerability. Something that felt safe in the moment, now turned into content for strangers to laugh at. I messaged him. "Why would you post our conversation on Reddit?" He replied like nothing was wrong. "It was funny. Don't take it so seriously." I stared at the screen. "You humiliated me." His bubble popped up, then disappeared. Then again. He finally wrote, "Look, it wasn't personal. People post dating stuff all the time. Grow up." I blocked him. Then I cried. Not just because it hurt, though it did, but because it made me feel stupid for ever thinking I was safe. I'd been careful. I hadn't overshared. I hadn't said anything I'd be ashamed of. And still, I'd been turned into a punchline. I kept checking the thread. Comments kept coming, some supportive but most brutal. Cruel in that casual, anonymous way. I didn't leave my apartment for a weekend. Eventually, I contacted Reddit's reporting system. I flagged the post for harassment. It took 5 days for it to be taken down. No apology. No message. Just gone. But I knew it had already been saved. Shared. Screenshot. Archived. Once something like that is out there, it doesn't vanish. It lingers in group chats. In Dropbox folders. In late-night Discord calls. I stopped using dating apps for a while. I didn't delete them. Just went cold. I couldn't swipe without wondering who else was watching. Who else was waiting to screenshot me? It's not just about being ghosted anymore. It's about being dissected by strangers for sport. People talk about dating fatigue, like it's about too many first dates. But for me, it's about being vulnerable in a space where people treat you like a meme. I've since started using a fake name on apps. I keep my messages simple. I don't send photos. I don't flirt unless I'm sure. I still go on dates, but I don't get comfortable until I've seen how they talk about their exes. How they treat waiters. Whether their phone is face up or face down. I play defense now. Because I learned the hard way that sometimes, the person you think you're connecting with is already planning to turn you into a joke for their group chat. Or worse, their Reddit clout. I used to love showing people my apartment. It's not fancy. A cozy one-bedroom in a pre-war building with creaky floors and radiator heat. But I'd made it mine, warm lighting, thrifted art, a record player in the corner. Every object had a story. The chipped blue mug from a trip to Asheville, the framed photograph I took in Iceland, the stack of books by my bed with notes scribbled in the margins. It was the kind of space where people relaxed. Where first dates turned into sleepovers, and sleepovers turned into breakfasts with mismatched mugs and too much French press. That's what I thought was happening with Julian. We matched on a Thursday. He was charming in that dry, self-aware kind of way. He'd read the same obscure novels I had. Quoted movies I didn't expect anyone else to recognize. We texted for a few days, then met for drinks near my place. He dressed well, nothing flashy, just thoughtful. Leather jacket, clean sneakers, subtle cologne. He asked questions, listened. He didn't interrupt or check his phone. When I mentioned I was a photographer, his eyes lit up. I knew it, he said. You have that quiet observer vibe. I laughed. That's either a compliment or a red flag. Both, he said, smirking. After our second drink, we walked back to my place. It was cold out, and I offered him tea. Just tea. No expectations. He stepped inside and looked around like he was stepping into a museum. This place is very you, he said immediately. I raised an eyebrow. You just got here. He shrugged. Still, I can tell. You live with intention. I poured the tea. He wondered. Not in a creepy way, just curious. He lightly touched the spines of my books, picked up a small sculpture on the shelf, complimented my taste in records. He noticed my Polaroid camera on the desk and asked if I still used film. He called my couch deceptively comfortable and sat with his arms stretched along the back like he was already home. We kissed that night. Nothing more. He left around midnight, after a lingering goodbye at the door. The next day he texted, "Thanks for letting me into your world." I haven't felt that relaxed in a long time. I smiled at the message. Maybe I'd finally found someone who wasn't trying to get somewhere. Just someone who could sit still with me in the quiet. We went on 2 more dates. Both good. But something didn't click. It wasn't him exactly. He was attentive, present, but I started noticing little things that made my stomach tighten. He remembered things I didn't tell him. He mentioned a bottle of wine I'd left on the kitchen counter. When I knew I hadn't pointed out, he complimented the scent of my shampoo, even though I hadn't stayed over. He referred to the small safe I kept under my bed, a detail he could have only noticed if he'd looked deliberately. I told myself I was being paranoid, but by the 4th date, I knew I wasn't feeling it. So I told him gently that I didn't see things going further. He paused, then said, "Okay, thanks for being honest." I appreciated that, until the texts started. At first, they were harmless. Just thinking about your apartment. You have such good taste. Your bed looks so soft. I bet you sleep like a cat. Then they got specific. You kept your keys in a little dish by the door, right? I love that. The windows in your bedroom faced east. You could watch the sunrise from your pillow. I hadn't shown him my bedroom. He never walked down the hall. But he knew. I stopped responding. That's when he escalated. One night, I came home to find a note slid under my door. No envelope. Just loose paper, folded once. It read, I can still picture the layout perfectly. Entryway, couch to the left, bookshelves on the right. You keep your camera near the window, and your socks in the second drawer under the mirror. You sleep on the left side of the bed. I locked every bolt on my door and called Mariah. She stayed on the phone while I checked every room. Nothing was missing. Nothing broken. But I felt violated. I filed a police report the next day. They took it seriously, sort of. They said since he hadn't physically entered the apartment again, it was disturbing, but not illegal. They suggested I get a camera. Maybe a new lock. I did both. I also changed my routine. Started entering through the back exit. Took different routes home. Stopped posting anything about my location online. He never contacted me again directly. But I saw a post on a niche photography forum a few weeks later. A user had uploaded a grainy photo of a familiar bedroom layout, my bedroom, taken from outside the window. The caption read, "Some spaces stay with you." I reported the post. It was removed, but I still moved 2 weeks later. His profile said, "Looking for player 2. Must love dogs, brunch, and catching 'em all." I should have known. I really should have known. His name was Bram. He had dark curly hair, thick glasses, and a bio filled with Pokemon puns. I figured they were just jokes, quirky, maybe ironic. His photos showed him hiking, cooking, and posing with a corgi named Growlithe, which I admit made me smile. We matched on a Wednesday. He messaged me first. "Bram, if I were a Pokemon, I'd be a Slowpoke, laid back and a little dopey." Me? If I were a Pokemon, I'd be Gardevoir, loyal but psychic, aka I see through bullshit. Bram, oof. Bold first move. I like it. He was clever, I'll give him that. We chatted for a few days. He slipped in a few more references, but nothing over the top. I figured he was just leaning into a theme. Everyone has their thing. I dated a guy who was obsessed with Dungeons and Dragons, and another who could quote every line from The Lord of the Rings. This didn't seem that different. So when Bram asked me out for ramen on Saturday, I said yes. I wore a black turtleneck, dark lipstick, and my hair up in a loose twist. Chic. Minimal. Elegantly detached. I was hoping to look like the kind of woman who could appreciate a little nerdy charm, but wouldn't put up with too much of it. He arrived 5 minutes early, wearing a denim jacket covered in enamel pins. I spotted Pikachu, Mimikyu, and a tiny pokeball near the collar. He also had a Bulbasaur patch stitched to the sleeve. "Hey," he said, hugging me. He smelled like cedar and laundry detergent. "You look like a ghost-type trainer." "That's a compliment." I laughed awkwardly. "Thanks. I think." We sat at a corner booth. He ordered tonkatsu with extra egg. I got veggie miso. Everything was normal for the first few minutes. We talked about work. He told me he did freelance design and ran a Twitch stream on the side. Then it began. As the waiter walked away, he leaned in and said, "Okay, real question. If you had to pick a starter Pokemon based on your vibe, would you go fire, grass, or water?" I blinked. I've never really thought about it. Instinct says water. You're calm but intense. Like a Vaporeon. I smiled politely. "That's specific." He grinned. "I have a gift. I pegged my ex as a Chikorita. Turns out she was more of a Jengar." I sipped my drink. He kept going. "So like if we were on a journey together," he said, "I think we'd make a solid team. I'd be your rival, but like the hot one. Not Gary. More like Silver. Brooding but misunderstood." I laughed, trying to play along. "I'd probably ditch you by the second gym." "You'd never get past Brock without me," he said, dead serious. I raised an eyebrow. "He's a rock-type trainer. I'd bring a water-type." He stared, eyes wide. "You do know your types. I knew you were a hidden trainer." "I'm not," I said quickly. "I played a little as a kid, that's all." He nodded solemnly. "That's how it starts." The ramen arrived. For a few minutes, there was peace. Then he pulled out his phone. He showed me a photo of his bedroom. It was a lot. Bookshelves lined with Pokemon figurines. A framed print of Charizard over the bed. The bedsheets? Pikachu in a repeating pattern. "I know it's dorky," he said, "but I believe in surrounding yourself with what you love." I smiled tight-lipped. "Of course." He kept going. "I've been to every region in the games. Even tried to nuzlocke a few. I cried when my Butterfree died. Like actual tears." I nodded slowly. "That's dedication. You know," he said, picking up his spoon. "This ramen reminds me of that episode where Team Rocket opens a noodle stand in Unova. Ever seen that?" "No." Classic filler arc. Jessie wears a kimono. Meowth burns the broth. Hilarious. I forced a laugh. I was trying. I really was. But then he pulled out something from his jacket pocket. A Pokédex-shaped notebook. "I write down potential nicknames for future Pokemon," he said, flipping it open. "Like if I ever get a shiny Eevee, I'm naming her Moondrip." Cool, right? I put my chopsticks down. "Bram." He looked up mid-sentence. "I need to say something." He blinked. "Oh, I think you're sweet, and you're clearly passionate. But this is too much." His smile faltered. "Too much?" "Yes. Like, you've made 20 Pokemon references in 45 minutes. I counted." He looked stunned. "It's just who I am." "I get that. But I'm not looking to date an anime side quest. I need someone who can have a normal conversation without turning it into an episode of Pokemon Journeys." He laughed nervously. "I thought you were into it. I was trying to be polite." He leaned back. "So you're saying I should hide who I am?" "No. I'm saying I'm not the right audience. And that's okay." He crossed his arms. "Wow. I thought we had chemistry. We might have, if you'd let me speak about literally anything else." He opened his mouth, then closed it. I stood up. "Thanks for the ramen, Bram. Good luck with Moondrip." And I walked out. He texted me 3 times that night. "Bram, sorry if I overwhelmed you. I just get excited. Bram, you were the first person I felt like I could be myself around. Bram, if you change your mind, the Indigo League awaits." I didn't respond. Because sometimes it's not about being mean. It's about self-preservation. I want to date a person, not a fandom. And no matter how charming someone is, if they can't have a conversation without turning it into a trivia game, they're not your match. They're just trying to catch you. His name was Lucien. Yes, Lucien. Like some medieval knight from a forgotten myth or a vampire lounge singer. I almost didn't swipe on him because of it, but he had kind eyes and his profile was unapologetically nerdy. Quotes from old video games, a photo of him at a comic convention holding a foam sword and the line, "Better at trivia than small talk, but I'll try both." It was kind of charming. Our messages were cute. Light banter, puns, a shared love of cult films. He asked real questions, never pushed for photos, and used full sentences. Not a single WID in sight. He said he worked in post-production for indie films, mostly editing horror shorts and fan projects. That should have been a flag, maybe. But I liked horror too. I thought it was just a shared interest. We met for coffee on a rainy Sunday afternoon. He wore a navy cardigan over a faded graphic tee that said "Final Girl Energy." His glasses fogged a little when he walked in. I noticed he smelled like cedar and bergamot, and that he smiled with his whole mouth, not just his teeth. Lucian was awkward in a way that felt intentional. Like he'd practiced being awkward because it made people lower their guard. He fidgeted with his spoon while we talked, but his eyes never left mine. We talked about movies mostly. He had strong opinions about editing styles in slasher films, hated found footage, and called certain remakes criminal acts. "I like horror that lingers," he said. "Stuff you think about days later." I nodded. The slow burn kind. His eyes sparkled. "Exactly." After 2 hours, he asked if I wanted to keep talking somewhere less fluorescent. "I live just a few blocks away," he said. "We could watch a movie. I won't pick anything scarring, unless you're into that." I hesitated. He added quickly, no pressure. "Just tea and projector-level ambience." I said yes. Because he seemed harmless. Because I was bored. Because it was raining and his house was close, and I thought, why not? That's how these stories start, right? His apartment was in a converted Victorian, one of those slightly crooked houses split into units. He lived on the top floor. The stairwell creaked under us, and his door had a sticker on it that said, "Here there be monsters." He unlocked it with a flourish. "Welcome to my lair." I laughed. Inside, the place was dimly lit but clean. A wall of bookshelves lined with Blu-rays and thick film anthologies. A projector hung from the ceiling, aimed at a pull-down screen above a couch draped in a black velvet throw. There were candles, real ones, with wax pooling into ornate holders shaped like skulls and ravens. It was a lot, but still within the realm of harmless film nerd. "Make yourself comfortable," he said, gesturing to the couch. "I'll put on something classic." He made tea while I scanned the titles on his shelf. Suspiria, The Thing, Martyrs, The Wailing, House of the Devil, deep cuts, stylish picks, some genuinely disturbing ones. He returned with 2 mismatched mugs and asked, "You mind subtitles?" "Not at all." He queued up a Korean horror film I hadn't seen and dimmed the lights further. The room went a soft amber, just the flicker of the screen and the scent of cinnamon tea. We sat close. Our thighs touched. His hand brushed mine once, then retreated. "Too soon?" he asked, smirking. "Maybe just the right amount of soon," I whispered. We didn't kiss. Not yet. Halfway through the movie, I said I needed the bathroom. "Down the hall," he said. "Left at the end." I walked slowly, trying to get my bearings. The hallway was narrow, walls covered in framed posters, some vintage, some disturbingly graphic. One caught my eye, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre poster, but it had been altered. Lucian's face had been photoshopped over Leatherface's body. I frowned. The bathroom door was closed. I opened another by mistake. It wasn't a closet. It was a room. A small one, lit with a red bulb. The walls were lined with pegboards, like a hardware store display. But instead of tools, it was weapons. Movie weapons. At least, I hoped. There was a machete mounted next to a replica of Freddy Krueger's glove. A chainsaw with red paint, or something darker, smeared across the blade. A collection of kitchen knives on a magnetic strip. A baseball bat with nails driven through it. A replica of the scythe from The Reaping, and what looked like a prop axe from The Shining. Above it all was a sign that read, "Props that deserve respect." My skin prickled. I stepped closer. Some were tagged with little labels. Names. Dates. One said Rehearsal Blade, 2021. Another read, Tested on Meat, Cleaned. I stopped reading after that. That's when I heard him behind me. "You weren't supposed to see this yet," Lucian said. I jumped. Spun around. He was standing in the hallway, still holding his tea. Sorry," I said quickly. "I thought this was the bathroom." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Sure you did. I'll just use the actual bathroom." I brushed past him. He didn't move. The bathroom was tiny, cold, and smelled faintly of bleach. I shut the door. Locked it. Sat on the closed toilet seat, heart racing. None of the weapons looked freshly used. Nothing suggested he'd done anything illegal. But something felt wrong. It wasn't just the collection, it was how curated it was. How reverent. Like a shrine. I glanced around. There were no windows. Just a vent and an old medicine cabinet. I flushed the toilet to make it sound like I'd actually used it. Washed my hands. When I stepped back into the hall, he was gone. The living room was empty. So was the kitchen. I scanned the room, heart hammering. My coat was still by the door. My phone was in my back pocket. I texted Mariah. At Guy's place. Weird vibe. We'll explain later. Just in case. Then I walked to the door and quietly unlocked it. The knob turned easily. I slipped out, fast and quiet. Down the stairs. Didn't run. Just walked like I belonged there until I was outside. Once I hit the sidewalk, I started moving faster. I didn't look back. I didn't stop walking until I was 2 blocks away, under the flicker of a street lamp. Then I called an Uber. He texted me 5 minutes later. You forgot your tea. I blocked him. I never reported him. Because technically, he didn't do anything. I didn't want to explain to a cop that I left because a guy had too many fake weapons and a room that smelled like ritual. But I told Mariah everything. I made her promise to never go anywhere alone with someone she hadn't fully vetted. I told her to always pretend she was on her period if a date started feeling weird, and to always keep her phone on her, even in the bathroom. I still think about Lucien sometimes. About how calculated his apartment was. How he offered just enough vulnerability to make me feel like I was the one in control. About how I almost stayed. Because that's the thing, he didn't scare me at first. He made me feel seen. Until I realized he wasn't a horror fan. He was a collector. And I was almost part of his collection. I could tell he didn't want to be there the moment he sat down. His name was Darren. We matched on a Sunday, chatted briefly, and met on a Wednesday night at a wine bar that I'd suggested. Dim lighting, jazz in the background, the kind of place where you linger. I wore a navy blue dress and my favorite ankle boots. He was 10 minutes late and didn't apologize. He walked in scrolling his phone, barely looked up and said, "Hey, sorry. It's been a day." I smiled politely. "Rough one." He shrugged. "Meetings. Calls. You know how it is." I didn't. I work in nonprofit development. My days are full of grant proposals and donor calls, not whatever finance-adjacent chaos he was clearly hinting at. But I nodded anyway. "Thanks for meeting me," I said, trying to reset the energy. "Yeah, no problem," he replied, eyes flicking to his screen again. The waiter came by. I ordered a glass of Tempranillo. Darren waved vaguely at the menu and muttered, "Cab's fine." I tried to ask him questions. "So you're in business development?" "Sort of. Startup world." "Yeah. What kind of company?" He checked a notification. "Tech adjacent. Mostly consulting. A lot of moving pieces right now." "Sounds intense." He looked up, finally, for half a second. "It is. That's why I'm not really doing this dating thing much. But your profile seemed, I don't know, real." I blinked. "Thanks." He smiled, but it felt like a reflex. "No offense, but most people on these apps try way too hard. Your pictures weren't filtered. That's rare. I'll take that as a compliment." "You should." I sipped my wine. He didn't touch his. He checked his phone again. This time, he actually typed something. I watched him do it, thumbs moving fast. He didn't even pretend to hide it. "Sorry," he said. "1 second. Just need to confirm a thing." I waited. 30 seconds. Then a minute. He finished typing and looked up, clearly expecting me to resume the conversation. "So what do you do again?" he asked, like I hadn't already told him in our messages. "I work in nonprofit fundraising." "Right. That's cool. Must be exhausting." "Sometimes." He nodded. Checked his phone again. I counted. 6 times in 10 minutes. I tried again. "So, what do you do for fun when you're not consulting or texting?" He smirked. "Honestly, not much these days. I'm usually working." I laughed lightly. "Everyone's working. What about when you're not?" He sighed, like I was asking too much. "I like running. Podcasts. I don't know. I'm not really in a fun phase right now." "Then why date?" He looked at me finally. If you're in a phase where you're not really into fun, why bother dating?" He didn't answer right away. Just swirled his wine, still untouched. Then, "Honestly, I've just been saying yes to things. Trying to be open. But I've got a thing at 9, so I can't stay too long." It was 7:18. I blinked. "You have something else tonight?" "Yeah. Just a thing with some people from work. Networking/drinks/whatever. I stared at him. You double booked a date and a work event? He shrugged. It's not a big deal. I figured this would be like quick. Vibe check, then move on. Move on to drinks with people you already know. He smiled like I was being unreasonable. Look, I'm busy. It's not personal. I set my glass down. It is actually. Personal, I mean. You invited me out. You agreed to spend time with me. And now you're clock watching. I didn't invite you. You asked me. It took me a second to respond. I laughed once. Not because it was funny, because I couldn't believe how casually he said it. Wow, I said. He held his hands up. I'm just being honest. No, you're being rude. He looked offended. Okay, hold on. No, I said, standing. Don't hold on. You clearly don't want to be here. So don't be. He blinked. Are you serious? Dead serious. I grabbed my purse. Look, he said, still seated. I'm just trying to be efficient with my time. That's all. This isn't a calendar block. It's a person. I'm a person. He rolled his eyes. Don't be dramatic. I leaned in slightly. Here's the thing, Darren. I've been on bad dates. I've been on boring dates. But I've never been on one where I felt like a time slot between two meetings. That's not efficiency. That's disrespect. You could have just said you weren't interested. I was. Until you showed me who you are. I walked out. He didn't follow. Didn't text. Didn't apologize. I called Mariah on the way home. Let me guess, she said after I told her the story. Finance bro who thought being emotionally unavailable was a personality? Worse, I said. He thought it was efficient. She laughed. Please tell me you didn't pay. I didn't even finish my wine. I went home, took off my dress, and lay on the couch in silence for a while. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. I was just tired. Tired of men who show up halfway and expect you to be grateful. Tired of confusing busyness with value. Tired of being polite to people who mistake presence for effort. Darren wasn't the first guy to treat a date like a networking opportunity. But he'll be the last one I let do it without a response. Because I deserve to be someone's full attention, not their filler event. And if that makes me dramatic, so be it. My name is Priya, and I'm not someone who usually shares personal stories online. But here we go. This happened during my second year at Hollins University, just outside Roanoke, Virginia. It's a quiet campus, small, wrapped in trees and old brick buildings that always smell a little like rain. I just moved into a single dorm, a blessing after a tense first year with a roommate who left candle wax in all my mugs, and I was starting to settle into a rhythm. Classes, late-night ramen, study groups, and the occasional party if I felt brave enough. I've always been the kind of person who trusts too easily. I forgive too quickly. Maybe that's why what happened with Kaito still clings to me like smoke. We met on Tinder. I wasn't even looking for anything serious. I just wanted someone to talk to, maybe hang out with. Swipe, 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 and there he was, Kaito. Japanese-American, lived in California, but was in Virginia visiting family. His profile was simple, looking for good conversation and better coffee. His photos showed him smiling in the sunlight, walking a dog, holding a guitar. He didn't seem like trouble. He messaged me first. Hey, I'm only in town for a little while, but I'd love to meet someone cool before I head back. Normally, I'd hesitate, but I was lonely. I just ended a casual thing with someone who ghosted me after 3 weeks, and Kaito seemed gentle, thoughtful. We talked for days. About books, movies, music. He told me he played guitar in a band back home. I told him I was studying environmental science with a minor in creative writing. He said he liked that I had a serious brain and a soft heart. I melted a little. After a week, I invited him over. My dorm had a kitchenette and no roommate, and he seemed excited. I've never been to Virginia before, he said. It's beautiful here. You're beautiful here. I laughed. We made dinner together. Watched an old Studio Ghibli movie. One thing led to another, and he stayed the night. He stayed for the next 2 nights too. On the third day, he said he had to fly back to California. I was sad but not surprised. We weren't serious. We hadn't even defined what we were. That's when things started to shift. A few days after he left, I casually texted him. Random question. How do you feel about mint chocolate chip ice cream? It was a joke. An inside thing from our first night together. His reply came instantly. Wait, you smoke? I blinked. What? Mint. That usually means weed. I didn't realize you smoked. I laughed. No, I meant ice cream. He didn't laugh. Oh, because if you did smoke, we'd have a problem. I paused. I mean, I do occasionally. Not often. It helps with my anxiety sometimes. His next message made my stomach twist. Guess we're not compatible then. I stared at the screen. Was he joking? Kaito had told me he toured with a band. He'd joked about drinking too much whiskey once. This sudden judgment felt sharp and out of nowhere. I tried to explain. I told him it wasn't a big part of my life, that it didn't define me. I even said I was willing to talk about it, to understand his perspective. His response? Don't bother. I cried. I'm not proud of it. I'd only known him a couple of weeks, but it felt like I'd been cut open and discarded for something that didn't even make sense. I called him a coward. Told him he was cruel. Then I blocked his number. That should have been the end. It wasn't. I invited my friend Naima over that night. We made popcorn and watched something dumb on Netflix. I needed the distraction. I needed not to be alone. And then, while Naima was asleep on my beanbag chair, my phone buzzed. A new number. Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I just wanted to see how you'd react. It was Kaito. I didn't reply. He called. And called again. And again. Naima stirred. What's going on? It's him, I whispered, holding up my phone. He won't stop. She sat up, wide awake now. Block him. I did. He's using a different number. Then block that one too. I did. But 10 minutes later, another number. Another text. Why are you ignoring me? By morning, I had received messages from 5 different phone numbers. All the same tone. Apologetic. Then angry. Then desperate. Then sweet. A carousel of emotions I hadn't signed up for. Naima took my phone and helped me block every number. She also helped me lock down my social media, tighten my Instagram privacy, turned off location on Snapchat, even made sure my Facebook wasn't searchable. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. The next night, we went to a small house party just off campus. Naima and I stuck together. I told her everything. The texts, the calls, how quickly he'd turned from charming to possessive. She was furious. This is stalking, she said. You need to report him. I don't have proof, I said. And he's in California. Is he? That question made my skin crawl. When we got back to my dorm, I noticed a message request on WhatsApp, and one on Instagram, and another on Facebook, all from newly created accounts. All from him. The messages were the same. I love you. I'm coming back. You can't hide from me. I froze. Naima grabbed my phone, read the messages, then looked at me. We're going to your RA first thing in the morning. We did. Our RA, Marisol, took us seriously. She listened, took notes, and involved the housing director. They escalated the situation to campus security. I gave them everything, screenshots, names, dates, times. A campus officer called Kaito. He was back in California, as far as they could tell. The officer gave him a verbal warning. You need to stop contacting Priya, he said. If you don't, we'll pursue further action. For a while it worked. 12 hours of silence. Then a new number. You think you can get rid of me with a phone call? I cried in the shower that night. I couldn't sleep. Naima stayed with me every night for a week. We told our professors. I moved to a new dorm building, one with a coded entry and security cameras. But Kaito found me again. I don't know how. Maybe someone mentioned me online. Maybe he guessed. He sent flowers to the front desk of the dorm. No note. Just a bouquet of lilies, my favorite. I'd told him that once in passing. Naima and I decided to go to the police. This time they filed a report. They told me to keep records of every message, every call, every contact. They said, he's technically not committing a crime unless he shows up here. I asked, what if he does? They didn't have an answer. Weeks passed. The messages slowed down, then stopped. I breathed again. I started to feel safe. Until one night, exactly 38 days after he'd last messaged me, I got a text. Another new number. See you Tuesday. That was the day he said he'd come back to Virginia for a visit. I couldn't breathe. I showed Naima. She went pale. We have to do something, she said. I emailed every authority I could think of. Campus security, the dean, the local police. I even called a domestic violence hotline. They all gave the same advice. Stay with friends. Don't go anywhere alone. Document everything. The night before Tuesday, I didn't sleep. I packed a bag. I stayed with Naima and her roommate in their dorm. We kept the blinds shut. We didn't answer the door. Tuesday came. And went. No Kaito. No texts. No flowers. I started to doubt myself. Maybe it was another mind game. Maybe he'd never planned to come. But the fear had carved itself into my bones. It's been 7 years since it happened, and I still can't drive through the Crocus Lane neighborhood in Bismarck without feeling like I can't breathe. The trees still lean in the same way, the sidewalks still crack in the same places, and the houses still hold their secrets. I told myself I'd never talk about it, but it's time. I was 21 back then, a college senior, studying graphic design at a small university just outside of town. I'd never been someone who dated much, not in high school, not in my first years of college. I wasn't shy exactly, just slow to trust. I'd grown up in a quiet, conservative family. My hometown had more cows than people, and most of the dating I saw was either rushed or reckless. Neither appealed to me. But loneliness has a way of creeping in when you least expect it. It was early fall, just before the leaves turned. I'd been playing around with dating apps on and off, Tinder, Bumble, and something called Clover. That's where I met Victor. His profile was unremarkable. A couple of photos, one of him hiking, one of him standing next to a truck. He had a short bio, living life one day at a time, looking to meet someone genuine. That word, genuine, hooked me. He didn't look like a creep. Clean cut, maybe a little older than me, but not by much. I swiped right. We messaged for a few days. He wasn't overly flirty, didn't rush anything. Asked me about school, my hobbies, why I liked photography. He told me he worked in construction and was renting a house on the north end of town, near the river. Said he was new to Bismarck, just moved from Idaho. We exchanged numbers, then agreed to meet in person. I wish I could say I had a bad feeling, that some part of my brain screamed, don't go. But it didn't. He seemed normal, boring even. We made plans to meet at his place one afternoon after my classes. It was a weekday around noon. He said he didn't like coffee shops and preferred to talk somewhere quiet. I hesitated but told myself it was fine. It was daylight. I'd be careful. I parked on the street. The neighborhood was eerily silent, the kind of silence that makes you think everyone's watching from behind curtains. The house was small, single-story, with fading blue paint and a crooked mailbox. It didn't feel threatening, just old. Victor came out before I knocked. He smiled, waved, and said, "Hey, come on in." I followed him inside. The house was cold. Not just chilly, cold in a way that seeped into your bones. The furniture was sparse. A couch without pillows, a table with no chairs. Most of the windows were covered with sheets instead of curtains. It looked more like a storage unit than a living space. Everything was blanketed in dust. He must have noticed the look on my face because he laughed nervously and said, "Yeah, I haven't really unpacked yet." I nodded, trying to be polite. "It's okay. I like minimalism." He offered me a bottle of water. I declined. "Want to go for a walk?" he asked. "There's a park nearby." Relieved, I agreed. The air inside the house was stale, heavy. I wanted out. We walked a few blocks toward a baseball field. The neighborhood felt deserted. No kids playing, no cars driving by. Just wind and leaves. We sat on the bleachers. He didn't say much. Just stared out across the field, like he was watching something I couldn't see. I pulled my jacket tighter. Out of nowhere, he asked, "You ever feel like people are just pretending?" I looked at him. Pretending what? Everything. Like they're putting on a show. Smiles. Jobs. Love. All of it. "I guess," I said slowly. "I mean, sometimes." He turned to me then. His expression had shifted. Sharper. Eyes narrowed. "You're not pretending, are you?" "No," I said, thrown off. "I'm just here." Something in his posture changed. He leaned closer. "You're real, right?" I forced a smile. "What do you mean?" And then he lunged. He shoved me backward off the bleachers. I hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of me. Before I could scream, he was on top of me, hands fumbling at my clothes. I kicked, punched, scratched, but he was stronger. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how it ends. But adrenaline is a strange and powerful thing. I got my knee up, hard, between his legs. He groaned and fell sideways, just enough for me to scramble up and run. I didn't look back. Not once. I ran across the field, through a line of trees, and back to the street. Found my car, locked the doors, and drove. I don't remember the drive. I just remember shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. I didn't go to the police that day. I couldn't. I went home, got in the shower fully clothed, and cried until the water ran cold. It took me a week to tell anyone. When I finally told my roommate, she gasped. "Leanne, you have to report this." I tried. I did. I called the non-emergency line, explained what happened. The dispatcher transferred me to an officer who asked me if I had any proof. I told him I had messages, a first name, a phone number. He sighed. "You didn't know his last name?" "No." "Did he actually assault you?" I paused. "He tried, but didn't succeed?" "No." There was a long silence. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Without more information, there's not much we can do." I hung up. And then, like something out of a horror movie, I went back. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted proof. I returned to the house that weekend, parked in the same spot, sat in my car for 10 minutes, heart pounding. Finally, I got out and knocked on the door. 3 men were sitting on the porch, older, rough-looking, smoking cigarettes. One of them stood up. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Victor," I said. They looked at each other. "No one named Victor lives here." He just moved in," I said. "A few weeks ago." The man shook his head. "Nope. This place has been empty for months. We're the crew fixing it up for the landlord." My stomach dropped. "But I was here," I whispered. He let me in. The man frowned. "You sure you got the right house?" I glanced at the door. It was cracked. Barely noticeable, but cracked. I turned and ran back to my car. They called after me, but I didn't stop. I drove home and deleted every app from my phone. I reported Victor's profile on Clover. It disappeared the next day. I should have known the first time I saw Kenji's profile that something wasn't right. But I was 20, bored, and still learning to ignore the butterflies that came with red flags. You know the ones, not the obvious, screaming red, but the soft, faded kind that look a little like adventure if you squint enough. I was in my second year at the University of North Carolina in Asheville. A vibrant town, nestled in the mountains, full of crystals, kombucha, and people who said things like, "Let the universe decide." I'd come here from a tiny, flat place in rural Missouri, where the most spiritual thing I'd seen was the statue of the Virgin Mary in my grandmother's front yard. In Asheville, I was trying to find myself. I dyed my hair copper, got a nose ring, started meditating, and on a whim one night, downloaded a dating app called Lotus. It was marketed as for conscious connections, which sounded like a nice way of saying, not just hookups. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone who didn't think astrology was a joke or call me dude during sex. Kenji messaged me first. His profile photo was serene, him kneeling beside a koi pond in a linen shirt, surrounded by candles. His smile was close-lipped, thoughtful. His bio said he was 26, a traveling healer, offering workshops in energetic realignment and soul retrieval. I had no idea what that meant, but he seemed kind, warm, like he knew things I hadn't even begun to understand. Our messages were dreamy from the start. He asked what my aura color was. I joked that it was probably beige. He said he could help with that. We moved from the app to texts, then voice notes, then calls. I found myself staying up until 2 a.m. listening to him talk about the vibrational frequency of the moon and how trauma lives in the fascia. I didn't understand most of it, but his voice was like honey and ash. I was enchanted. He said he was only in Asheville for a few weeks, staying at a friend's place while planning a retreat in Costa Rica. "We should meet," he said. "You feel aligned." God, I wanted to be aligned. I invited him to the coffee house where I worked part-time. He showed up right at opening, wearing loose white pants and no shoes. No shoes. In public. He ordered ginger tea and tipped me $20 for a $3 cup. "I don't believe in paper limits," he said, nodding toward the tip jar. "Abundance flows to those who welcome it." He stayed for hours. We talked between customers. He asked about my family, my dreams, my biggest fear. Looking back, I realized I didn't ask much about him. He was a master at flipping conversations around, turning every answer I gave into something about presence or manifesting wholeness. He made me feel seen. We went on 2 more dates, if you could call them that. We meditated together in a field. He read my energy using a pendulum. We kissed under a weeping willow tree in the botanical gardens, his hands always gentle, never forceful. Then he invited me to a gathering. "It's a women's circle," he said, "but I think you're ready. Mairead will be there. She's the one who guides me." I hesitated. He leaned forward, took my hands, and said, "Don't you want to meet someone who can help you shed the parts of yourself that aren't truly yours?" I nodded. The gathering took place in a large house tucked away in the hills outside Asheville. I drove up a winding gravel road, surrounded by trees and fog. The house was cedar-sided, with wind chimes hanging from every corner. The door was open. Inside, it smelled like sandalwood and something vaguely metallic. Mairead greeted me in a flowing red robe. She was older, maybe 50, with piercing gray eyes and thick, silver-streaked hair. She kissed both my cheeks and said, "You've arrived." There were 5 other women already seated in a circle on the floor, all in various stages of undress. Some wore slips. One was topless. No one seemed uncomfortable. I sat down, heart pounding. Mairead lit a candle and began chanting in a language I didn't recognize. Kenji stood behind her, silent, watching me. The ceremony began. We were asked to share our fears, our shadows. I spoke about my people-pleasing, my anxiety, how I felt like I was always trying to be who others wanted me to be. Mairead nodded. "That's your wound. We can help you heal it." Then came the cleansing. One by one, we were asked to disrobe, to lie down in the center of the circle, to allow Mairead and Kenji to release attachments through touch. The other women went first. They didn't flinch when Kenji placed his hands on their stomachs, their thighs, sometimes between their legs. I was frozen. When it was my turn, I stood up and shook my head. "I'm not ready," I said, voice cracking. Mairead frowned. "Your resistance is your ego. Don't let it win." I don't want to." Kenji stepped forward. "Saffron, this is part of your healing." I looked around. The other women were watching me. Some with pity. Some with blank expressions. I backed away. "I need to go." "You'll regret this," Mairead said, her voice suddenly sharp. "You're choosing pain." Kenji didn't move. I ran. I didn't even grab my shoes. I got in my car and drove barefoot back to my dorm. My feet were shaking. My phone buzzed nonstop. "Kenji, you're breaking your path." "Kenji, Mairead says you're cursed now." "Kenji, come back. We'll forgive you." "Kenji, I saw your fear. You're not ready for truth." "Kenji, you'll never be whole without us." I blocked him. I blocked the women I'd met that night. Then I went to the police. They didn't take it seriously at first. "Did anyone touch you without consent?" they asked. "No," I said. "But they groomed me. They tried to lure me." I showed them the messages. I told them about the secluded house, about Mairead, about the cleansing ritual. They finally opened a report. A few weeks later, I got a call. The house was empty. The land was owned by a shell company. Mairead's name wasn't in any database. Kenji's phone number had been recycled. They were gone. I'll never know what would have happened if I'd stayed. If I'd laid down. If I'd said yes. I wasn't supposed to be on the internet that night. It was the summer of 1998, and I was 16, holed up in my room in Indianapolis with the slow whir of a box fan and the dial-up modem screeching like it was possessed. My parents were asleep downstairs, and I was supposed to be working on summer reading. Instead, I was logged into an AOL chat room called Indie Late Night. Back then, the internet still felt like a dream you could walk through. Everyone was anonymous. Everyone had a weird screen name. Mine was Derail17. I thought it was cool. I'd been chatting for a couple hours when I got a private message. Lunadream_9. "I like your vibe. You seem different." Her profile said she was 17, lived in Bloomington, and liked books, storms, and secret games. Her profile pic was a grainy webcam shot, just her eyes and the edge of a smile. It was blurry, but she looked pretty. Soft, pale skin. Dark bangs. I replied. Of course I did. We hit it off fast. She was smart, funny, kind of intense. The kind of girl who'd quote Poe one moment and ask if I'd ever kissed someone in the rain the next. I was hooked. She asked me what I looked like. I said tall, skinny, brown hair, awkward smile. She said she liked awkward. She said awkward was honest. Then she asked a question that made me pause. Lunadream_9. "Do you like games, Darren?" I didn't know what she meant. She clarified. Lunadream_9. The kind where someone gives the rules and the other person just follows. I thought it was a joke. I played along. Said something stupid like, "Sure, as long as I don't have to eat mayonnaise." She sent a smiley face, then said, Lunadream_9. "What if I told you I was playing a game right now?" I asked what kind. She replied, Lunadream_9. "One where I see how far I can go before you get scared." I laughed. Nervously. She didn't. Then she asked, Lunadream_9. "Ever done anything private on cam?" I hadn't. I didn't even have a webcam. But I said, maybe. She said she had one. Asked if I wanted to see her. I said yes before I even thought twice. She sent me a link to a private video chat room. The screen loaded slow. My heart was pounding. When the video finally came on, she was sitting in a dark room lit by candles. Her face was partially hidden behind her hair. She wore a thin tank top with spaghetti straps and a choker. Something about the way she looked into the camera made me forget how to breathe. She leaned closer and said, "You're cute." I didn't know what to say. Then she said, "But it's not just me here." My stomach dropped. A man stepped into frame. He was older, maybe in his 20s. Shaved head, wearing a black hoodie. He didn't speak. He stood behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. She didn't flinch. She smiled. "I told you," she said. "It's a game." I froze. The man leaned down and whispered something in her ear. She nodded. Then she said, "He wants to talk to you." I closed the window, logged off the site. My hands were shaking. A minute later, she messaged me again. Lunadream_9. "Why'd you leave?" "It was just getting fun." I didn't reply. She kept messaging. Lunadream_9. "He said you looked scared." Lunadream_9. "Scared is cute." Lunadream_9. "Don't you want to meet us?" I blocked her. I logged off. I sat there for a long time, staring at my reflection in the monitor, heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't know what had just happened, but it didn't feel like a joke anymore. The next night, I got an email. No subject line, just a message. "You look good in that red shirt." I had worn a red shirt that night. Nothing on my profile had a photo. I hadn't told anyone where I lived. I didn't sleep. I unplugged the modem. Asked my parents if I could move the computer into the living room. Told them I felt weird being online in my room. They didn't ask questions. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then I got another email. This time with a photo attached. It was blurry, taken through a window. Of me, sitting at the kitchen table, eating cereal. Alone. I told my dad. He freaked out. Called the police. We filed a report. The cops said they'd look into it, but this was 1998. There was no way to trace an anonymous email from a Yahoo account. No IP tracking. No digital footprints. No way to explain why a 16-year-old boy was being watched by someone he met on a chat room. I deleted everything. The account. The messages. My screen name. I didn't go back online for months. But I never forgot her. Lunadream_9. Sometimes I wonder if she was real at all. Or if she was just bait. A mask. A trap. Whatever she was, she taught me something I'll never forget. When someone says, "It's just a game," ask who's watching. And who's really playing. I used to think I was good at spotting creeps. I worked in a bar off 6th Avenue in Tacoma, and after 2 years of serving drinks to slurring regulars and frat boys who thought "smile more" was a compliment, I figured I had a decent radar. But nothing I saw behind that bar prepared me for Felix. We matched on Tinder in early spring, when everything still felt gray and wet, and the idea of dating again didn't seem like a mistake yet. I'd been single for about 6 months after ending a situationship with someone who thought texting "you up" counted as affection. I wasn't looking for love, just someone to flirt with, maybe grab a drink, maybe kiss in a parked car while pretending it was still high school. Felix's profile was simple. No shirtless gym selfies. No fishing photos. Just a clean-cut guy in his late 20s, leaning against a car wearing a navy peacoat. His smile was crooked but charming. His bio said, "Quiet, intentional, curious. I like long drives and bad horror movies." I messaged him first. He responded within minutes. We talked for a few days. He was articulate, funny in a dry, almost academic way. A little shy but attentive. He asked good questions. About my work, my art, my tattoos. He said he liked women who knew what they wanted. I told him I wanted a night out that didn't feel like babysitting. He offered to pick me up. I hesitated. "Just drinks," he said. "Nothing weird. I promise." I gave him my address. And I wished to God I hadn't. He texted around 7 p.m. Outside, smiley face. I looked through the curtain. A black sedan was parked across the street, engine running. The windows were tinted, but I could see someone in the driver's seat. I grabbed my bag, texted my roommate, and headed out. But when I opened the car door, something felt off. The man behind the wheel wasn't Felix. He was older. Late 40s maybe. Thick hands gripping the steering wheel. Wearing a dark hoodie and a ball cap pulled low. I stepped back. "Sorry, I think I got the wrong car." He smiled. No, you didn't. Felix sent me. My stomach went cold. I'm his dad, the man said, like that made it normal. Why would his dad be picking me up? He got called into work. I'm just giving you a ride. I didn't move. Come on, he said. Don't be rude. I slammed the door shut and backed away. He peeled off without another word. I ran inside and locked the door. I texted Felix. Me? What the hell? Felix, what? Me. Your dad just tried to pick me up? Felix. Oh, he was just helping. Me. That's not okay. That's creepy as hell. Felix, you didn't have to be mean about it. Felix, he's a good guy. Just nervous. Felix, he really wanted to meet you. I blocked him. Told myself it was over. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. The next night, I worked a closing shift at the bar. Got out around 2 a.m. It was cold, misty. I called a cab since my car was in the shop. A few minutes later, a black sedan pulled up. Same make. Same color. Same car. I stood under the awning staring at it. The back passenger window rolled down. And there he was. The same man. Felix's dad. You called a ride? He asked casually. I shook my head. I'm good. You sure? He said. It's late. Dangerous to be alone. I stepped back toward the bar door and knocked until my co-worker let me inside. I didn't even explain. Just said, that guy's following me. We called the police. By the time they arrived, the car was gone. Again, I filed a report. Gave them the messages. The description of the car. The man's face. They told me to stay somewhere else for a few days. Maybe crash with a friend. I stayed with my sister in Gig Harbor and didn't go home for a week. I kept expecting the texts to stop. But then they started again. This time from a different number. Unknown. I'm sorry about the car thing. Unknown. He just wanted to protect you. Unknown. You're special. We both saw that. Unknown. You look beautiful in that red coat. Unknown. I'll try again. You'll say yes this time. I called the number. It rang once, then went to voicemail. The recording was just breathing. I changed my number. I moved apartments. I deleted Tinder. I thought that would be enough. But a month later, a letter showed up at my new place. No return address. Inside was a photo. It was me, taken from behind as I walked into my new building. And on the back, in messy handwriting, you looked lost. I can help you get home. I moved again. This time out of state. I didn't tell anyone where. I met Theo on a warm September evening, right after my 22nd birthday. Santa Fe was still holding on to summer, golden light spilling over the rooftops, monsoon clouds humming at the edges of the sky. I'd been living there for less than a year, a recent transfer student at the Southwest College of Art. I was trying to start over, let go of the mistakes I'd made back in Phoenix. Tinder felt like an easy distraction, a way to meet someone without having to explain who I used to be. We talked for hours after I swiped. He had a dry sense of humor, bordering on cynical. He said he played synth and bass, mostly experimental stuff. He asked about my art. I told him I liked painting bodies in unnatural colors, lavender skin, green mouths, bleeding gold. He said he wanted to see them. That's rare, I said. What is? A guy who wants to see my paintings before my body. He replied, who says I don't want both? I laughed, flirted back. It felt like we were circling something electric. After a few days of texting, he asked to meet. Come to my place, he said. I've got a studio in my garage. I'll play you a song I wrote. Then I'll make you tea. We can sit on the floor like teenagers and talk about everything we're scared of. I hesitated. Or, he said, we can meet at a coffee shop and have an awkward first date under fluorescent lights. I chose the studio. I was curious, and a little reckless. His house was tucked into the outskirts of Santa Fe, near the foothills. Adobe-style, flat-roofed, with a dusty blue door and wind chimes made from old spoons. I parked on the street and texted him. He met me at the door barefoot, wearing a Joy Division t-shirt and jeans with a hole in the knee. You're taller than I thought, I said. You're prettier than you think, he replied. He led me through the house, dim, cluttered, filled with half-soldered electronics and stacks of records. The garage door was closed tight, and inside, it felt like a different world. The walls were covered in foam paneling. Guitars hung from hooks. A synthesizer with blinking lights sat under a red desk lamp. There was a small couch, a floor mattress, a heavy black curtain dividing the back half of the room. Soundproofed, he said. I like to get lost in here. He handed me a pair of headphones and played a song. It was eerie, ambient synth layered with distorted vocals. His voice looped and warped, repeating, "You said you'd stay. You said you'd stay." I closed my eyes. When I opened them, he was watching me. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded slowly, then smiled. "You felt it? That's rare." I laughed nervously. It was intense. He made us tea, something herbal with a bitter kick. We sat on the floor, knees touching. We talked about ghosts, about childhood fears, about the way certain songs make you ache in places you didn't know existed. I told him about the first person who broke my heart. He told me about the time he tried to build an instrument out of bones. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. They were animal bones, he said. Mostly. I must have looked uneasy because he reached out and touched my knee. "I'm weird, not dangerous." I smiled, even though my pulse had quickened. He leaned in. We kissed. It was slow at first, his lips soft, his hand warm on my back. Then deeper. His fingers slid under the hem of my shirt. I didn't stop him. It had been a long time since I felt wanted. We moved to the mattress on the floor. Clothes came off in pieces. The room was warm, dark, silent except for our breathing and the soft hum of the amp still on in the corner. He was intense. Not rough, but focused. Like he was trying to memorize every part of me through touch. He whispered things, unusual things, while he moved inside me. "Don't disappear," he said. "Stay here," he breathed. "Be still." After, I pulled the blanket over myself and tried to catch my breath. He sat up and lit an incense stick. I asked if I could use the bathroom. "Down the hall," he said. Second door. I wrapped myself in my shirt and padded through the house. The hallway was darker than I expected. I opened the first door, not the bathroom. It was a bedroom, and it made me freeze. There were photos pinned to the wall. Dozens of them, all of women. Some were selfies. Some looked like they were taken without consent, through windows in parking lots. I stepped closer. My skin prickled. One of the photos was me. From that night, standing outside my car, looking at my phone. I stumbled back and slammed the door shut. The second door was the bathroom. I locked it, heart pounding. My legs felt like water. I stared at my face in the mirror, trying to think. What the hell had I walked into? I got dressed. Quietly. Quickly. When I stepped back into the studio, Theo was sitting on the couch, staring at the wall. "I'm not feeling great," I said, grabbing my bag. "I think I'm gonna head out." He didn't answer. I moved toward the door. He stood up. "You weren't supposed to see that." My throat tightened. "See what?" He walked toward me slowly. "You don't understand the context." "I need to go." "You're not listening." I bolted. I made it to the front door and out into the night. He didn't follow. I drove away with shaking hands, barely able to breathe. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I reported him to campus security, even though he wasn't a student, and then to the police. They went to the house. It was empty. No furniture. No instruments. Just dust and a few stray cables on the floor. The address had been a rental. Paid in cash. No forwarding information. No ID. Theo, if that was even his name, was gone. I deleted Tinder. Blocked the number he'd used. Was I the next photo? The next name pinned to the wall? Or something worse? People think working the night shift at a motel is boring. They imagine hours of scrolling through your phone, sipping burnt coffee, maybe watching a raccoon shuffle across the parking lot. And sometimes, yeah, it is like that. But there's also something else, something quieter. The way the dark presses against the windows. The way every creak sounds like a footstep. The way strangers check in, and you never really know if they're passing through or hiding from something. I was 24 when I took the job at the Desert Pines Inn, a low-slung two-story off I-40 in Flagstaff. I dropped out of college, needed money, and didn't want to work in food service again. The pay was okay, and the owner, Mrs. Lerner, was rarely around. I liked the solitude. It was late October when I matched with Nolan. I'd downloaded Tinder again out of boredom. I wasn't looking for anything serious. Just someone to flirt with. Maybe trade some banter. Maybe more if I was feeling brave. Nolan's profile wasn't flashy. Just him in a denim jacket, standing next to a motorcycle. Buzzed hair, sharp jawline, dark eyes. "Not here to play games," his bio read. "Just want real talk and real touch." We matched at 1:12 a.m. I was behind the front desk, legs curled under me, watching the security camera feed on mute. Most of the guests were asleep. Room 9 had just checked in, a couple passing through on their way to Albuquerque. Nolan messaged first. "Nolan, you up?" I laughed softly. "Classic." "Me. I'm literally at work." "Nolan, what do you do?" "Me. Night clerk. Motel." "Nolan, sounds hot." "Me. It's mostly boredom and stale coffee." "Nolan, where?" I paused. Normally I wouldn't say, but something about his tone, casual, disarming, made my guard slip. "Me, Desert Pines." "You probably haven't heard of it," he replied with a smiley face. Then, "Nolan, I know it. Stayed there once. Room 12. I blinked at the screen. That was a little weird. "Me, did you like it?" "Nolan, loved it. Especially the night clerk." I froze. I hadn't been working here long, maybe 2 months. I didn't remember him, but something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. Still, I kept chatting. Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I was reckless. He asked what I was wearing. I described it honestly: oversized hoodie, leggings, fuzzy socks. He said he liked that, said it made me sound soft and real. He asked if I was alone. I told him yes. He said, "I'd keep you company." I didn't respond. A few minutes later, a car pulled into the lot. Black SUV. No plates. My heart kicked up. I watched on the camera as the driver parked near room 12. The man inside didn't get out. He just sat there. Headlights off. I messaged Nolan. "Me. Is that you in the SUV?" No reply. I waited. The man in the car didn't move. Not for 2 minutes. Not for 5. I stood up and peeked through the blinds. The SUV was still there. The front windshield looked like a black mirror. Then my phone buzzed. "Nolan, you have nice eyes." I stepped away from the window. "Me, where are you?" "Nolan, close." The SUV door opened. A man stepped out, tall, buzzed hair, denim jacket. He walked toward the office. I locked the door. He knocked, 3 sharp raps. I didn't answer. He knocked again. Then he smiled, pressed a piece of paper to the glass. It said, "Room 12. Let's talk." I called the police. By the time they showed up, he was gone. SUV vanished. No trace. They took my statement, drove a loop around the area, and told me to be careful. "Probably just someone messing with you," one of the officers said. "But keep the door locked." I didn't sleep. The next night, I didn't open Tinder. But at 2:04 a.m., I got a text. "Unknown. Didn't mean to scare you. You looked lonely." I blocked the number. I didn't tell Mrs. Lerner. I didn't want to lose the job. A few days passed. Then Nolan checked in. Not under his name. I wouldn't have known if I hadn't recognized him immediately. He walked in around midnight, sunglasses on, even though it was dark. Said his name was Eli. Paid in cash. Asked for a room away from the road. I gave him room 7, hands shaking. He looked at my name tag. "Ivy," he said. "Pretty name." I nodded. He smiled and left. I watched him walk to the room. He never looked back. I didn't call the cops. I didn't know what to say. But I told my coworker the next day I needed time off. I stayed home for a week. When I returned, room 7 was empty. But on the front desk, under the counter, someone had slipped a Polaroid. It was of me, taken through the office window. I was sitting at the desk, head down, sketching in my journal. On the back, in sharp black ink, "You're even prettier when you're not talking." I quit the next day. I moved to Albuquerque, stayed with a cousin, changed my number, deleted every dating app I'd ever used. Sometimes I wonder what he wanted.